Welcome to a Friday Reads, where I talk about what I read, what I'm reading, what I hope to get to next, and I am in a reading mood, which is exciting. I mean, not everything's been a hit. We're still, in a weird place, but, I'm wanting to start all the things, and it's it's a little overwhelming. Currently in an okay place, but as I was thinking of what I want to read next, that part of the video, I'm like, oh, I want to read so many things. I just picked up a book from the library that I want to start now, but also I'm buddy reading a thing, and that just started today. I haven't finished things I've started from last week. It's a little chaotic over here, but it's a fun chaos. I don't feel overwhelmed yet. Time will tell. But we'll start with what I finished since last time. So on Friday, I had some impromptu Patreon reading sprints because I'm like, I need to figure out what I want to read. And last week was exhausting. All I wanted to do was sit on the couch and read books with friends. That's all I wanted to do. And so I manifested it. I made it happen. And I basically went through a bunch of stuff I was reading until something was the thing I wanted to focus all my energy on. And that happened to be Shards of Honor. I'm going to put up a different image because I just think the graphics on this is illegible. This is completely illegible. I don't know who did the graphic design. I mean, it's not bad. It's just not good. It's not legible. That's my problem. It's how do you read this? Regardless of the covers that these books get, I'm trying so hard not to buy everything in this series right now because not all the ebooks are available at my libraries. I don't really get on with the audio narrator. I think I mentioned in last Friday Reads that I listened to the first chapter with the audio. And that was, fine. And I was immersion reading it. And so that kind of helped with, his intonation. But I'm I love the banter between these characters. And I cannot let this audio narrator make that a lesser experience for me and my interpretation of those scenes. My internal narrator will be better. And oh, it was. I had such a blast. I don't even know how to talk about this book and why it works so well for me. I think what I'm going to end up doing, because I am going to continue on with this, it's kind of a duology, although you can buy it as a bind-up sometimes. I'm going to finish the duology, and then I'm probably going to do some sort of review spotlight for it, because I currently don't have thoughts other than, I really, really liked it. It was great. It was just everything I have been craving, and I can't even put my finger on it, because what I've been craving has also been nebulous to me. It was great sci-fi, awesome action. I think I just really liked how competent Cordelia was, she was great to follow. I really liked the clash of cultures. I enjoyed the time jumps. It's short, it's concise, and I think all the moments it chose to highlight were moments I enjoyed seeing, and everything that was off page weren't things that I felt like I was missing, and I was like a kid who was trying to get out of family obligations to finish my book this weekend, and honestly, I'm always trying to channel that vibe of what, you need me to set the table, but I want to finish my book, that type of energy. Yeah, Shards of Honor was great. The other book I finished was my reread of Bone Shard Daughter, and this was fun. So my first read, I really liked it, 4-star, had a lot of fun with it. I don't think it was the big hit for me that it was for so many other people. I think the world's really cool, and I do like one of the main perspectives, but I think our main character, it wasn't as compelling to me when I first read it, and I think rereading it knowing what I was going to get, doing the audiobook with narrators that I love, was perfect. It was very entertaining. So if anything, I think it's still a solid 4-star, but it's a higher 4-star now, almost a 4.5. I had a lot of fun with it, and I started, I guess we'll go into currently reading, I did start Bone Shard Emperor. And I'm very, very early days. This is not a reread, first read, because I think, didn't this book come out in 2021, and we're now in 2023, and I think I just wanted to read the rest of the series close together, because that just felt like what I wanted from this arc of a story. And also at the time, I still am I say this all the time, it's if you're gonna do rebellion fantasy, I'm getting a little tired of the same old, we'll pretend we're gonna look at societal problems, we're gonna do that because that's an easy setup. It's truly such an easy setup for so many fantasy trilogies. Some of my favorite trilogies do this. It's so easy. But then we're not gonna finish the thought experiment because we're gonna have some big, magical disaster. And I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen here. But to be fair to the series, it kind of starts with that in chapter 2 of the first book. So it's it led with that. So I don't ever feel like I was sold false goods or anything. So we'll see what happens though. For all I know, I'm going to be really shocked by what Andrea Stewart chooses to do with the politics of this series. I have no clue. But I'm here for the narration. I love the audiobooks. So that's the rest of the month is truly me just listening to Bone Shard Emperor and then Bone Shard War, because I have access to that audiobook as well, and we'll see. I'll probably for sure do a should you read for that, because yeah, it's a new release and a fantasy series that I do like, even if I don't love it as much as everyone else. Another thing I'm in the middle of, I finally started, was Universal Love. This is a buddy read with Evie. I read the short story collection debut by this author, what's it called? Children of the New World, last year. And he is a very good short story author, I think. Like, he's actually, in terms of like the craft of what idea should fit the short story space, I think he's pretty good at it. He has a pretty easy writing style. I think the thing that doesn't bother me, but I'm just never wowed by any of his stories. Like, I'm perfectly engaged while I read them, which honestly, that's a pretty high bar. There are a lot of short stories that don't engage me, so that's really good. And sometimes I just feel like maybe he leans on stereotypes a little too much. Especially in some of these early stories, I'm like, you didn't push it the next inch. You like really got the surface. So maybe stereotype's not the right word. Maybe it's just very surface level approach to the questions he's answering. And it's not bad though. They're engaging. It's a fun buddy read. So, continuing with this, if it was difficult to read his stories, I would probably DNF it because of his execution of themes, if that makes sense. Because it's also not like he's a big character developer in these short stories. He just has like a science fiction idea, usually with society and technology. That seems to be his focus, and how people communicate with each other and interact with each other. That seems to be the focus of this author when he's doing these thought experiments. And it truly is something like, you know, you're very basic, like, what would Black Mirror do with this, maybe? But maybe not even as in-depth as that, right? Because it's like a 20-page short story. So, not bad. Definitely wouldn't be, like, my first recommendation for this type of sci-fi short story. That would definitely be more like Ken Liu or Ted Chiang. But also, if you want to dip your toes in and have a really accessible writing style in sci-fi short stories, he's actually pretty good for that. So, that's one buddy read with Evie. The other one that I just started, like, 2 hours ago on the train is finally, The Wall of Storms. Is that what it's called? I'm now even blanking. You know, like sometimes you think you know a name of something, and I have said this title of this book in so many videos, but it's this one, the second book in the Dandelion Dynasty. And it was funny because I was picking it up to start reading because everyone in the buddy read chat is already like on chapter 4 or 7, and I haven't started yet. It was like at chapter 3, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did pick this book up like months and months ago to try and read, and I got to chapter 3 before like life made me DNF it or something like that, like pause it or whatever. And so I started over. So I'm rereading the first 3 chapters, and I forgot how fun chapter 1 was. Like, it's a little jarring how Ken Liu chooses to set the scene, because we are, I don't know, 15, 20 years ahead of Grace of Kings. I'm guessing. I don't think I've been given a clear time point, or I haven't done the math or anything. And we're like just in this tavern, and it starts with the storyteller telling his story like the bard, and we have someone having a conversation with their friends at a table, and then we find our main characters. But it's a little jarring how we're thrown into the scene. But I think the scene is set really well, and I'm just also reminded at how engaging his prose style is to me. Like, I'm just so there. I love the intentionality of the words that he chooses to describe the sounds in the scene, or how things look, how cold it is. I think he's really good at helping me feel out a space, because I don't really visualize, right? But like, I really had a sense of this space. I was playing as close as I get to a mini movie in my mind, and it was also fun because I was rereading it. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I remember how this scene plays out. I don't remember what happens next, but I remember this scene. So I read chapter 1 on the train, and I'm excited to finally getting into this. Although it's the biggest thing I've read this month. Like, everything else I've been working on has been like maybe 300 pages, and this is like, I don't know, is it 800 pages? I don't even know, but it's okay. Never been scared by a long book before. It'll be okay. Another one I'm in the middle of is The Sun and the Void, which is still good, but it's definitely not gripping me as much as I want, and that really, it hurts me. I'm going to finish this because I am very invested in this world, in the setup, in the fact that this is an Afro-Latina author writing who's from Venezuela. Like, I have given so many average books a chance by white dudes that I'm for sure just going to finish this book. Even though, if it wasn't a Venezuelan fantasy, and if I didn't have to literally beg the world to give me South American fantasy, like, truly, I have so few options. It's like this and The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina. There are no other high fantasy books in South America. Like, not even translated. I tried to look, you know, like, it's... But I'm going to finish it. Even though I'm not connecting to the characters, which is why, like, if this was any other fantasy release, I probably would have DNF'd it. At this point. I'm like a third of the way in. Although, I'm in part 2 now, and some things changed that I think might make me connect to one of our characters a bit more. Reina's been going through some things. I feel like she's more of our main character. We have not been getting equal page time between Ava and Vrena, who are our like 2 point of views. And I get what's happening, but I just feel so jarred at the moments where I am really in a scene to the moments where I'm really not, and I think it's just a writing style disconnect between me and her. Like, it's not a bad writing style or anything like that, and I love the world, and I love all of the world building and how it's tied to the history of the land. Like, having just read Open Veins of Latin America, it's like, oh, I really love how you're incorporating this. Like, I'm enjoying the world building, but I'm very character focused in my reading, especially of fantasy, and I don't love either of my main characters. They're not bad, but they don't feel very vibrant and strong and standing on their own. They're very reactionary to their surroundings, and they don't have very strong thoughts or emotions that I'm latching onto, and I can't really put my finger on why. Like, there's a supporting character that I understand more than my main character because of how my main character is, like, observing this other person. So we'll see, because we've had a big pivot in events recently in the story, what's going to happen. But I do think if you're kind of, like, plot-driven, this will probably work a little better for you. And if you are bored of the same old in fantasy, you do have to give it a try just for the world building and the setting, and the descriptions are really pretty. And again, that's something I can really appreciate, but it's just not my cup of tea. And especially, like, after picking up Wall of Storms just now, and then having read Shards of Honor, it's like, I just really have strong examples of when things work to compare to how this just isn't working for me, which kills me. It absolutely kills me. But definitely I'll give more thoughts once I have finished it. But it's also one of those things where I don't want to, like, get slumpy by forcing myself to finish it, because it's a tome. It's like 500 some pages, and I want to be reading so many other things. That's like my struggle. And for that reason, we'll talk about my DNF of the month. I have DNF'd a thing. I mean, I don't give myself just one DNF a month, but it seems to be that's my approximate rate of DNFing books, and that's The Book Eaters. I made it 2/3 of the way into this book, so 200 pages. I gave it a good go, and it wasn't bad. This was aggressively not bad. It was fine. I have no critiques other than everything the author was choosing to do didn't work for me and my engagement of the story. Because I don't think enjoying is what you're supposed to do with this type of story. It's definitely a story that's, looking at societal trauma, like what happens to this woman who's in this patriarchy where she's forced to have children and then be separated from them. This isn't a happy-go-lucky story, This is a species of people that have such strict rules that a class of their individuals are always oppressed and not allowed to be themselves. Like, there is nothing happy about The Book Eaters, so enjoyment isn't the thing I was looking for. I knew it was dark. I kind of knew what I was going to get, and no reviewer led me astray. And we even talked about this a lot in my Discord, because I started reaching out to a bunch of people who had read it, because I had 100 pages left, and I could have just read it last night. I could have finished it. But I noticed I was picking up an audiobook, and I was about to put it on 3 times speed and immersion read it just to get it done in an hour and a half. And then, maybe it would have been 2 hours. But I was then just like, well, why would you do that? Like, why are you just choosing to do that? You could watch a TV show, you could watch a movie, you could read another book, you could play your video game. Like, there's so many things you can do with 2 hours of your time. That's not an inconsequential amount of time if you don't really care where this is going. So I asked a bunch of people, is the ending part of your love for it, or is it more the thematic journey? Because I could totally see how this is just more of a character study, thematic journey thing that is why people love this book. Because those were things I think it was doing really well, but because of what we were focusing on, our main character, Devin, is truly very isolated. Even in her own thoughts, she's very distant from the reader. And I think I struggle with that most of the time. It's a rare book when that works really well for me. And in general, I didn't really care where it was going, and I felt really bad that I was incredibly apathetic. I did listen to the author interview at the end of the audiobook, per some recommendations in the Discord, and that was phenomenal. And, I really appreciate how the audiobook narrator has the right dialect for the region, and I love the representation, I think there's neurodivergent representation. So, there's so much that's good about The Book Eaters. I just think that because of what we were doing with the story, it was really plot-driven, at least in my opinion. I feel like a lot of the big momentum forward things was the whole, twists or things that was happening to our characters. There was a lot of reacting in this book. And there weren't a lot of bonds that were allowed to be formed, and I'm big on that. I truly am. And there was a lot of character development for Devin off-page between our flashbacks. And then in her present day, she's just survival mode. And normally I like survival mode. Like, I love Sorrowland by River Solomon, which is about a mother who's trying to survive with her children after escaping a cult. Like, I feel like there's a lot of overlap in themes there. Sorrowland I couldn't put down. The Book Eaters, I was forgetting I was reading it, and then while I was reading it, I would put it down super easily. So that's why I'm DNFing it. So, self-care there, especially because I've been struggling with The Sun and the Void, and if I had to pick one of the two to finish, I was going to finish The Sun and the Void, as I've already stated earlier, because I'm gonna power through, because there have been many a fantasy book that has been slow at the beginning, looking at you, Way of Kings, that I have turned around on. So there's definitely a chance, and I definitely want to give that chance to that debut author. So those are all the things I'm in the middle of, I think. Like I said, it's a little chaotic over here. And then I'm struggling even more because there's the Morning Star live show next week. So I should read that. I really need to pick that up. So by this time next week, I need to be at least halfway through it. So I need to read Morning Star. I haven't started Velocity Weapon, and everyone in the Discord for the Patreon Buddy Read is having such a good time, and I have so much FOMO. I just really want to be reading it, especially after how much fun I had with Shards of Honor. And then speaking of Shards of Honor, I just picked this up from the library, and this is the second book to the duology, which again, you know, wonderful cover, but this is at least easier to read, so the graphic design, you can at least read the title. And I want to read this so bad. I just picked this up, like, I really want to. And I have no clue if I'm ever going to own all of these or anything like that. Like, I do like, oh, these aren't even the same height. What is it? No, if I ever own these, it's just going to be the ebook, because I can't handle how the editions are all so different. They're all so different, and it's not even like they're stunning. Like, this is pretty in the whole, like, oh, this is so pulpy sci-fi. Like, you know, it's like aesthetically that type of thing. But yeah, I really want to read that. So I have 3 sci-fis that I need to read, and I just started Wall of Storms, and I'm in the middle of Bone Shard Emperor. We'll see what I have accomplished coming next week. I do have reading sprints you're seeing this after they've happened, but I'm going to have reading sprints Thursday. I don't have work Monday, so maybe that's a reading day. Saturday's dead. Saturday, there will be no reading because I will be doing board games with friends, and actually, we'll see if this sticks. We have moved the Elantris live show to this Saturday at noon Eastern Daylight Time. We'll see. We've been having some health issues in the group, and you know, there's no rush. We want to have everyone there to talk if we can. So we'll see what's going to happen. And I do have 1 book haul. I mean, I guess technically 2, but I showed it in my quarter one, the other one. So I'm not going to show that one. That was The House with Good Bones. I already showed it in my quarter review video. But I'm really excited. I mean, I'm a little bummed because it's not the same height as the other one, but they're not actually sequels anyways. But I got New Sons 2, which is an anthology. I have New Sons 1 up on the top of my shelf. It's a stunning edition, but that one's more like a tall trade paperback, and this one's it's taller than a mass market, but I don't know what size it is. But I like it. I mean, the cover is still so pretty, and we still have the wraparound like we do the other one. So the cover design is consistent. They're just completely different heights. But what was really fun is I was going through the table of contents, and I know so many of these authors, and so many of them are short story author favorites. I'm like so excited. I've already started to like get Shannon and Kristen ready to buddy read this with me, because, you know, they're my anthology buddy read partners, I guess. And like, we got Darcy Little Badger, we got John Chu, we got Nevo, we got Tanana Redo, we have Alex Jennings, Karen Lawauchi. So many good names. Malka Older. I'm just excited. And I really like these collections because they're pretty short. Well, short. They're like 320 pages, and I think that's like my sweet spot for anthology length. So I'm not reading this right now, but if someone was like, hey, I started reading this, you want to join me? I probably would just add it to the pile of things I'm reading because I have no self-control right now. Anyways, that's what I'm reading. Yes, I'm still watching Smallville. Not that you guys need to know or care, but I just watched the Red Kryptonite episode that we get in season 2, and like, I just love Red Kryptonite Clark Kent. I mean, I love Clark Kent always, but Red Kryptonite Clark Kent is special. He's just so special. In like such a fun way. It's like mash so many of my favorite tropes into like one character in one moment. Like it's fantastic. So that's mainly what I'm doing with TV is I'm watching Smallville. I don't actually think I've talked about it here either, but 2 weekends ago I watched Nope, which is a fantastic horror film, and I am so sad for it that it didn't get more acclaim because I think it's really well done. Like, I really liked Nope a lot. And I really liked the other horror I've watched, Get Out, right? That's the one. I haven't watched Us because that one looks like it would actually terrify me. Alien horror I can handle. which is what Nope looked like, and it was pretty good. But and talk about scenes. We talk a lot in my Discord about movies and stuff being too dark these days. This takes place at night, like 90% of the time, and you can see things. Take note, everyone. Like, bare minimum should have been nominated for that effect, because we're struggling in that department lately, just needing to compress all the data or whatever. I don't actually know a lot about film. I know how to light my YouTube videos. That's all I know how to do. Anyways, if you want to just leave an emoji to let me know you're here. It should be something for Shards of Honor, but I think I had you guys do something like that for last week, and shards are hard. But we also have the Bone Shard Daughter. I don't know what a shard is, but that's what we're going with. Anything that makes you think of a shard. Otherwise, you can just leave any emoji you want if you just, want to say hi. Let me know what you're reading, doing, watching this weekend. And otherwise, like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.